Hi, my name's Nick Harvey, and I just wanted to do a brief presentation on something that I think is really important in terms of data quality that helps us bring efficiencies and safety to the care we deliver. This video is primarily intended for the pharmacy and prescribing teams. EMIS uses a system where we should be inputting problem codes, and I want to talk about how we can use them to their best effectiveness when prescribing. So problem codes are really intended to represent either a symptom or a diagnosis, preferably a diagnosis, but of course we don't always know the diagnosis when we are documenting a consultation. It's worth noting that they're not really intended for text like telephone encounter or medication review, because these codes do populate a list that we use to see at a glance what the past medical history is of the patient. It is also notable that the problem codes can be significant or minor, and they can be either current or past, and EMIS splits these up when you have a look at the problem list. I think it's good practice to try and use a problem code in every consultation. I think sometimes it is quite difficult to find one that is relevant though. The reason why we try to use it as often as possible is because when you start a consultation under a particular problem code, it's quite easy to see that the presentations with the same symptom or diagnosis. It's also much easier to track prescribing. So we would like to try and ensure that every medication that is commenced is linked to a problem within EMIS, so that it's easy in the future to track why that medication is being taken, and therefore the actions that should be taken at a medication review. I've got some good personal examples of where this really improved the care I was delivering. For example, a patient who was on aspirin and I couldn't see a linked problem, so I looked into it further to find out that actually it was no longer indicated. Similarly, a patient who was on Ventolin but not problem coded as asthma and therefore not receiving their asthma reviews. So what are the practical steps we need to take? First of all, if you have a look at the prescription screen, a lot of you will start out with one looking like this. It's important to go to the settings or the configuration and set the views to detailed. And this will show you the problems that are linked to each medication if there has been one. There are a few ways of linking medications to a problem, and this is one. So when you're adding a new medication, obviously put in all the details as usual, and you can click problems and click link to one that's already been entered. Obviously the problem needs to be entered. Normally obviously you might click request, but I'm printing it because that updates the screen, and there you can see that the medication is linked to depression. Another way of achieving the same outcome is to open a consultation. So if you were to be seeing a patient, you enter the code that you think is relevant. When you do the prescription and then save the consultation, you will see that the medication is automatically linked to cellulitis. One of the problems that can happen here is that people prescribe multiple medications under the same problem when they're not actually for the same problem. So you can adjust these later, and I'll show you how. But I guess the gold standard way would be to add another problem to the consultation, and it is then prescribed under that problem on a separate tab in the consultation screen. But here you can see cellulitis being linked to flucloxacillin automatically. If you right click, as you've just seen, and then click link problems, you get this screen, and here you can drag over medications that aren't linked to a problem. There's not a relevant one here for QVAR, but I'll just put it here to show you. In this case, the patient might have asthma, and that's why they're on QVAR. So we need to add asthma code, and this is another way of doing it from the problem screen, clicking add problem, and then choosing code and the date and adding it. It then appears on the problem list, but we can also then go to link problems with the right mouse button, find QVAR, and drag it under the appropriate problem. You can see now on this screen it's really clear to see why they're on each medication, and it's much easier to do a rapid medication review, knowing the indications for each one. I hope you found that useful and practical, and I hope you agree that it is worth the small amount of extra time and effort to link most medications, especially if it is following a discharge or a new diagnosis, or even if you've seen somebody and started something yourself.